If you're even vaguely familiar with my channel, chances are you've seen one of these two shorts, both about quote-unquote Brooklyn drill rapper Lil Mabu. And despite me personally really not liking him as a character or the majority of his work, I think his career has been an extremely interesting case study on the effect social media culture, specifically TikTok culture, has on aspiring musicians. But before we get into all of that, who even is Lil Mabu?
I woke up this morning and put on my fit, on some typical white boy shit, khakis and white.
Well, according to Wikipedia, Matthew Peter DeLuca, born April 4th, 2005, better known by his stage name Lil Mabu, is an American Brooklyn drill rapper based in Manhattan, New York. Now, what Wikipedia doesn't tell you is that his two parents, Peter and Jane DeLuca, are filthy rich, own multi-million-dollar properties in both Upper Manhattan as well as the Hamptons, and most likely have an insane amount of connections within the music industry. So despite what his violent lyrical content might suggest, make no mistake, Mabu is the textbook definition of a nepo baby. Now, of course, there's nothing inherently wrong with being born with privilege, but I only bring this up because, spoiler, I'm going to be heavily criticizing both Mabu himself and his music in this video. So before anyone says, oh, don't be so hard on him, he's just a child. No, he's not. He is a legal adult, and on top of that, he was a millionaire at birth, now engaging in some extremely deplorable marketing tactics, all for the sake of getting as much fame and money as possible. But before we talk about any of that nonsense, we have to go back to the very beginning of his career. So the first single listed on Mabu's Spotify page is a track called Man Down, released in 2019. And the best way I could describe it would be, imagine a Lil Baby song, but performed by a middle schooler. Sure, it's super formulaic, but the guy was like 14 when he dropped this, what do you expect? And to be fair, there are some genuinely enjoyable moments. Like this little section here, Mabu is kinda going off, I'm not gonna lie. It is kind of funny seeing that even since his debut track, Mabu was completely capping with most of the lines, but I'll give it a pass here since 1, it's a lot less irritating since it's coming from a literal child, and 2, the gimmick of a rich white kid cosplaying as a gangster hasn't gotten stale at this point, since this is his first track after all. Not much else to say about the song honestly, but I think it is important to take a look at what Mabu's ground zero looked like in order to really understand how drastic his TikTokification was, so to speak. Now there are some other tracks Mabu dropped in between Man Down and the next song we'll be going over in detail, but I'm going to be skipping most of them since nothing really important in the overall story occurs, given we're still in the pre-TikTok era of Mabu's career. I will say though, it is super funny to listen to these tracks in chronological order, since they perfectly document Mabu's voice breaking through puberty.
Miss me but never wanna link when we can. Used to diss me, now you wanna call me a friend. New watch when my mood switch, yeah, shawty say aquí. So I got a belly on me, I'm not Jesus. Run up a check, fingers they blue, you know the vibes, I stay with the crew.
Also just want to give a quick shout out to the track I'm Done, because I thought it was genuinely okay, with it having a nice enough beat and some slightly more personal lyrics from Mabu. Anyways, let's move on to the next phase of Mabu's career, which of course started with the track
I can never snitch, that's on my kid. I put a chopper on a blade.
Yeah, so you couldn't tell by the cover art, this is right around the time where Lil Mabu really started playing into the whole street rapper cosplay joke. But to be honest, if I look past Mabu's whole gimmick, which is already starting to get old and unfunny, this track actually isn't too bad. For one, I think the little narrative Mabu raps about in the fourth verse is actually fairly nice, despite it being completely fake. And it's also got a decent enough feature from this rapper called Dusty Locane, who fortunately actually has a decent rapping voice, unlike his collaborator. I'll get into it more as the problem gets worse, but for the most part, I cannot stand this faux aggressive delivery Mabu puts on for all of his drill tracks. It just cuts right through me.
Where my shooters at? Guess they running late. All my ops probably smoking rock, so I got time to...
Overall though, I wouldn't call it anywhere near the worst music I've ever heard, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty mediocre single, at least relative to the success it saw. With 21 million views on the music video, 122 million streams on Spotify, and an impressive 78,000 videos with its sound on TikTok. So what do you do when you create a viral moment and also don't care about your integrity as an artist? You double down. After the blow-up of No Snitching and Mabu's subsequent releases, his fate was pretty much sealed as a gimmick rather than an actual musician. First came his mixtape, Double M's, which, no joke, is literally just 7 different versions of No Snitching.
Look at my body, just watch how I move. Run up on me, he's done with it.
And even though I didn't hate that track to begin with, the humor just gets so tired after a while. Then of course we got Wicked Witch, Throw, his On the Radar freestyle, which fun fact is where I first discovered him, and then of course the appropriately named Trip to the Hood. All of which follow the exact same basic formula. Rap over a trap/drill instrumental, pretend to be a gangster with over-the-top lyricism despite being a privileged white kid with millionaire parents, and sometimes pay an artist with actual street cred to hop on a feature to appear more authentic. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with playing a character in your music. After all, tons of hip-hop artists lie in their songs all the time.
I could never have a kid and be out here still kidding around.
But with Mabu's music, His lyricism just isn't engaging enough for me to buy into this fictionalized version of himself he portrays, leading to all of his songs just feeling fake. But on the other side, if you go into his music expecting not to take it seriously, a la Young Gravy or Lil Dicky, it's not even funny or entertaining since the only joke he relies on is, oh, I'm a rich white kid pretending to be a gangster, and he's ran it into the ground. And to just take it outside of the music for a second, even if all of Lil Mabu's songs were great, at the end of the day, he's still capitalizing off of a culture of murder, gang violence, drug use, etc., all while being privileged enough to not have to deal with all the actual hardships that come with that lifestyle that he portrays in his music. He's a culture vulture, simply put. Or should I say, was a culture vulture, since after his run of singles from No Snitching to Trip to the Hood, I think even Mabu realized that his gimmick was getting stale. So with his next single release, he actually switched it up, albeit slightly. Ladies, gentlemen, or otherwise, I hope you're all excited since it's now finally time to talk about the song you've all been waiting for, the song that may or may not be a part of the peak of my career as a YouTuber for the rest of my life. You know it, you love it, please welcome... 3.14159263. I'm the king of NYC. Guys, watch this, I'm gonna say the thing. 3.14159263 are the first 10 digits of the mathematical constant pi, which is the ratio of a circle's circumference. But joking aside, this is legitimately still my favorite track I've heard from Lil Mabu. Maybe it's just because I'm a nerd at heart, as my comment section makes sure to remind me daily, but I'll take Mabu dropping dumb math bars over pretending to be a street rapper any day of the week. It's also the perfect length for a Mabu track in my opinion, at a quick minute and a half. And there are even some other entertaining bars in here besides the math ones. The intro line for one I thought was pretty smooth, and this part in the middle where Mabu shows some self-awareness around his whole shtick is a way better implementation of satire than his attempts on other tracks. So overall, yeah, I like the song even now, and I think its blow up on TikTok made for a genuinely entertaining moment. So at this point in the timeline, Lil Mabu is the king of the internet. Tens of thousands of people are making TikToks with the blue, red, purple line, and it seems like if nothing else, Mabu will just continue making dumb but entertaining tracks with some creativity sprinkled in so he stays relevant. But unfortunately, his next single, Rich Scholar, just seemed like another doubling down moment, with Mabu now playing into this new gimmick of, oh, I'm a famous rapper and I'm still in high school, isn't that crazy? This was also the point where you could really feel how much of a marketing ploy this track was meant to be, with Mabu himself posting countless TikToks talking about how much parents want him banned from his high school given the lyrical content of his songs. There's even this corny-ass sketch in the beginning of the video. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just can't stand it when a song relies so heavily on the antics surrounding it. It's the same feeling I got with that new Lil Nas X song where he used all of the Christian imagery. It just feels so inauthentic and clickbaity, especially when the song itself is just mid like J. Christ and Rich Scholar are. But moving past this moment in Mabu's career, we actually reach what's probably the most interesting single he's released so far. Help a look around and say, this where I belong. Now if mathematical disrespect was a change in Mabu's style, At What Cost is a straight 180 from everything he had put out so far. And the results are a pretty mixed bag if I'm being honest. First off, I will once again give Mabu some credit here for having a level of substance with his lyrics, with him mainly rapping about the struggle of maintaining a healthy balance between his personal life and his music career. It is a pretty tired subject in hip-hop, but at the very least it feels authentic, which is something that's been missing from pretty much every Lil Mabu song up until this point. But man, does this cheap-ass cinematic production really drag the song down. It sounds like NF if he was even more pretentious. Good things in, we all heard that one before. Yeah, whoever said that shit better prepare. But even still, while I don't find this track to be as enjoyable as Mathematical Disrespect, I can absolutely respect the choice to make a song like this at arguably the peak of your success, instead of just rehashing your previous work. But here's the thing, while I can respect what Lil Mabu was trying to go for here, at the end of the day, him and his marketing team only seem to care about dollar signs. So when the song did significantly worse commercially than Mabu's previous records, sadly I knew that he'd most likely abandon going down a more genuine, serious career path. But even knowing this deep down, I still was nowhere near prepared for the absolute dumpster fire of a song Mabu would release as his next single. Take your bitch, take her for a trip, fly her to New York. I'll just cut to the chase here. Mr. Take Ya Bitch is by a mile the absolute worst track I've ever heard from Lil Mabu, and quite possibly the worst charting song of 2023. First of all, as expected, any semblance of the authenticity displayed in At What Cost is completely absent on this track, in favor of yet another shameless marketing ploy by Mabu and his team. But this time I'd argue it's his slimiest tactic yet, with Mabu deciding to team up with fellow internet punching bag Krishan Rock. If you've somehow been fortunate enough to avoid all of the drama surrounding her, I'll give you a brief synopsis. Basically, Krishan Rock is most well known for a turbulent and legitimately abusive relationship with rapper Blueface, which itself has created some absolutely insane headlines from the pair. From Krishan losing a tooth after a fight with Blueface's baby mama, to her assaulting both Blueface himself and his mother apparently, to then announcing that the two are having a child, to Chrisean then streaming her childbirth on Instagram Live, to Blueface then proposing to another woman at a football game, up until now where Chrisean recently got a tattoo of Blueface's face on her face. I'll link a great article in the description detailing their entire relationship, but overall, these two are an absolute mess, and frankly should both get off the internet to save their child from a lifetime of embarrassment. However, I guess Lil Mabu thought differently, and decided to join the circus by releasing Mr. Take Ya Bitch, a Blueface diss track featuring Chrisean herself. Now listen, I don't care what side you're on in this whole fiasco, but in my opinion, it is legitimately disgusting to so openly exploit an abusive relationship like Blueface and Chrisean's, all for the sake of getting attention and money. And even if you want to separate the art from the artist like everyone says, the song is still dog shit. Mabu's voice is like peak annoying on the hook, his lyrics in the second verse are painfully unfunny, and Chrisean's bars about newborn pussy and her water breaking are vomit-inducing.
This that newborn pussy make my water break. Only thing that's broke is my
It's almost impressive how garbage this song manages to be in less than 2 minutes. And the worst part is, the song did insanely well. Not only managing to chart on the Billboard Hot 100 and garnering 50+ million streams on Spotify, but also having a whopping 1.3 million videos with its sound on TikTok. I really cannot express enough how much I fucking hate this song and everything it represents when it comes to CD marketing within the music industry. It truly feels like the moment where any hint of genuineness left in Lil Mabu's music at this point died a painful death. But if there is one positive I can take away from this monstrosity, at least now I'm fairly confident that Lil Mabu will never release another song worse than Mr. Take Ya Bitch. Speaking of, let's take a look at his next single featuring 5EO Foreign, Teach Me How to Drill.
Baby, welcome to the hood. If you with us, you good. Yeah, 50.
Man, how did 5EO Foreign go from having arguably the best verse on a Kanye West album to doing this? I hope he at least got a crazy bag for this feature and music video, since he'll never be taken seriously again as an artist after featuring on this trash. Now don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say Teach Me How to Drill is anywhere near as horrible as Mr. Take Ya Bitch, but man, is it just so lame. I'll start with the positives, I guess, since there's really not that many, but I thought the part where Mabu and 5EO rap about almost capping Drake in the head was pretty funny. There's also, Actually, that's pretty much it for the pros, let's just move on to what sucks. For starters, I guess Mabu decided that enough time had passed since the release of Trip to the Hood, since he really leans back into the insanely played out rich white kid rapping about the street life gimmick that I talked about earlier. But this time the grifting is even more shameless and on the nose, with Mabu teaming up with 5EO and creating essentially the gentrification of drill music epitomized into one song. And the thing is, I could actually see this being a decent parody if it wasn't done by this guy, who, need I remind you, is parodying a genre of music associated with so much real violence and bloodshed, none of which he actually has to experience given his millionaire upbringing. It's just all extremely tasteless, especially with 5EO co-signing the whole thing, and even that Pop Smoke interpolation in the chorus. Like, imagine being so money hungry that you decide to deliver such a spit in the face to the man's legacy after he was murdered at age 20 due to actually living the lifestyle that you're exploiting in this track. It's just so gross, and yet another example of Mabu's music being nothing but a shameless grift. And once again, it worked like a charm, garnering 25 million views on the music video and millions of streams on Spotify. Just embarrassing, really. Now, Teach Me How to Drill is Lil Mabu's latest single as of recording this, but he actually did recently collaborate with NLE Choppa on a remix of Shot of Flow 7. Yes, there are actually 7 of them now. And while it isn't too important in the timeline overall, I figured I might as well mention it since it's technically the most recent song he's been a part of. But as for the song, it's whatever. Mabu just kind of rehashes the whole Blueface thing since now both him and NLE have beef with him, and if you couldn't tell by the last segment, I really don't want to hear anything Blueface and Chrisean Rock related ever again. But with that track out of the way, you now know the entire saga of Lil Mabu so far. So let's recap.
New year, new me, new clothes. Get to the bag and double the hoes. Get away from.
As I mentioned in the intro, Lil Mabu's whole career is an excellent display of the power social media has when it comes to creating the most commercially successful music, and how nowadays success is more determined on creating the biggest viral moment rather than actually good music. Mabu himself started off as a young kid making rap songs in the style of other popular artists, but his music at the time was ultimately harmless, and he was on pace to start a possibly promising career. But after that first taste of true success with no snitching, him, or more likely his marketing team, seeing nothing but dollar signs in their eyes, ended up going down a road of nothing but marketing stunt after marketing stunt after marketing stunt, and his TikTok audience of Zoomers lapped it all up, leading to Mabu's music becoming the epitome of money-hungry, soulless rage bait, all while he's sitting back in his parents' mansion while he poorly parodies a culture synonymous with so much tragedy that he will forever have the privilege of completely avoiding. I think this YouTube comment under Fantano's video about Mabu actually sums my thoughts up perfectly. Now, don't get it twisted. I don't mean to come off as some terminally online freak hell-bent on hating everything Lil Mabu ever says or does, I mean, after all, I did title this video, My Love-Hate Relationship with Lil Mabu, because I do think the guy's talented, and he's definitely a marketing genius if his claim of being an independent rapper is true. But I can't deny that his career has flawlessly demonstrated the consequences that arise when you focus on the antics rather than the art. Because at the end of the day, no one will remember Lil Mabu's name 10 years from now if he keeps this up. Who knows though, maybe Mabu will just completely prove me wrong and drop the hip-hop album of the decade in 2028. Man, that'd really be something, huh?